is working. Maybe that's Kyle.
I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous? You're a little bit upset? You're riled up?
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude,
Dude.
you want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
That's a good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2. 5 eighths. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy!
Dance, dance, dance.
Rand Paul.
I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
You think I might be a Nazi?
Agree.
No.
Death to America.
You.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way! Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook. Throw our hands up.
Ooh.
Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me,
Hey, shut up!
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
whoa, what's going on? Oh, there I am. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, or I should say, welcome us back. We're back. We had some technical difficulties. Too many of you are using the internet, and it is inhibiting our ability to get the show out. So what we need everyone to do is stop using the internet, and then you'll be able to watch the show. In the meantime, we did record the interview that I just did with Danigal Goldthwait Young. It was a great interview, and you'll be able to see it. Really, actually, I mean, I found it fascinating. It's obviously sort of in my wheelhouse, comedy, talk radio, and I think you'll enjoy it. We will post it. We will send it to members as a video. We will send it so you can check it out later on YouTube. We'll put it up there, and maybe we'll drop it into Twitch. Can we do that? I don't know. Maybe we'll do that too. I'm not sure. But we're going to treat the fun half like the beginning of the show. And who knows? Maybe we get into this habit where we split up the fun half and the regular show. What do you think about that, Matt? How would you like to have one more thing to do technically during the broadcast? Would that make it easier for you?
Oh, I can't wait. Yeah. More
Yeah,
things.
you seem super excited.
The more things, the better.
Yeah. Oh, we're just starting now, folks. This is just the beginning. We're going to actually do like a simulcast where we create the screen in fours, and one will be a video game that Matt will be playing
All right,
while
now I'm
he's
interested.
producing the show. Yeah, exactly. All right, let's get right into this. One of the things I said up front in the show today was that Donald Trump, and he seems to have backed off it a little bit. Well, there's probably two reasons. But Trump yesterday, I guess, during his daily White House news conference, he said America will again and soon be open for business, very soon. We cannot let the cure be worse than the problem itself. This is what he had to say yesterday. This is clip number 2. And he was basically arguing. And now, of course, health experts are not saying this. Donald Trump is saying this. Do we have that video, Brendan? Do we have Brendan? Here we go. All right, here's that video. We don't have sound. We'll be right on that 1 second. And we should say that there was a report that preceded his announcement, or I should say that followed his announcement when people started to look into this. What is going on? This is funny. Well, it's sort of funny. President Trump's private business has shut down 6 of its top 7 revenue-producing clubs and hotels because of restrictions meant to slow the spread of novel coronavirus, potentially depriving Trump's company of millions of dollars of revenue. I guess one of these things like makes him, what is it, like $70 million a year? His 7 producing clubs bring in about almost $200 million a year, so 174. $478,000 a day, $500,000 a day. And he's pissed about it. And so he gets up and goes to the press conference. And of course, there's no doctors who are going to, or I should say public health officials or epidemiologists who are going to in any way provide any backing for this statement. But here he goes.
Definition, and I will say we're going to be watching our senior citizens very closely. We're going to be watching certain hotspots like New York, and within New York you have areas which are troubling, and we'll be working with the governor and the mayor and everybody else on those spots. But at the same time, at a certain point, we have to get open and we have to get moving. We don't want to lose these companies. We don't want to lose these workers. We want to take care of our workers. So we'll be doing something, I think, relatively quickly, but we've learned a lot during this period. This was a very necessary period. Tremendous information was gained, but we can do 2 things at one time. You know, and again, I say we have a very active flu season, more active than most. It's looking like it's heading to 50,000 or more deaths, not cases, 50,000 deaths, which is, that's a lot. And you look at automobile accidents, which are far greater than any numbers we're talking about. That doesn't mean we're going to tell everybody no more driving of cars. So we have to do things to get our country open. But this has been an incredible period of learning, and we'll have announcements over the next fairly short period as to the timing. John?
All right. Now, there's 2 things. He wants to do 2 things at one time. One thing is he wants to prevent the spread of a pandemic. And the other thing he wants to do is not prevent the spread of a global pandemic. And he wants to do those two things at the same time. And what he doesn't seem to understand is that the second thing, not preventing a global pandemic, will trump, excuse the pun, the attempting to suppress and prevent the spread of a global pandemic. You can't do both those things at the same time. And he cited the flu. It is true. We lose anywhere from 40 to 60,000 people a year with the flu, but we have contained it. We know what that number is going to be. We have hospital capacity. We have a medical system that has been, in many respects, built around that knowledge of what we can anticipate year after year. And the same with highways. And the difference with, yes, we could have everybody drive 10 miles an hour, and we could get rid of traffic deaths and fatalities by I don't know if we could totally eliminate them, but we could get rid of almost all of them. But the thing is that traffic deaths do not grow exponentially. Traffic deaths are not a function. Like, once you get one traffic death, that does not mean that you will get now 3 more traffic deaths. But if you are not mitigating the spread of an epidemic, that's what you will get. Now, that clip was from yesterday. Donald Trump today has now come out and said more like, well, we're looking at Easter, which is what? Easter is what? April 12th this year or something like that? It's right around Passover. I'll spare you the story of the Seder being the last dinner. But it's right around the first, second week in April. And that is 3 weeks away. And I will tell you something right now, that will not work either. At that point, what he is postulating is that he is assuming that New York, as the epicenter, the hardest hit because of the density, is going to have reached its peak by then. And it's going to be clear that it has stabilized and plateaued. And therefore, he's going to interpret that as, well, now we can basically go about our businesses because we have reached that plateau. One, the medical system will be near the brink of collapse if it hadn't collapsed under the weight. We don't know how severe it's going to be. Two, it's an assumption that we're going to have reached that point. But we're going to have reached that point because of the measures that are in place now. And if you remove those measures, what's going to happen is it's going to spike again. In 3 weeks, we anticipate that the measures we're practicing now will have caused the deaths to plateau. But that's not a permanent plateau. That's a function of the relationship between deaths and new deaths and the practice of us staying at home. And if we don't stay at home, those deaths are going to rise again. But what it's doing is it's basically telling the rest of the country, like, hey, don't worry about it. It's not that big of a deal. And so what you get is something like this. This is from the newsadvance.com. Thousands of Liberty University students expected to return to campus amid coronavirus outbreak. It's almost an Onion headline, but not quite. I feel like it's not quite as funny as the Onion could make it. I feel like there's one or two sort of twists in that headline that would make it funnier. This is just sort of tragic. I mean, this is I don't know how many of you remember Jim Jones and Jonestown. I can't remember how many people it was that went in and literally drank the Kool-Aid. I think that's where that phrase came from, actually. They drank the Kool-Aid that this cult leader told them to, and it killed them all. And it was a mass suicide of his commune in Jonestown, Guyana. I don't know how many people it was. I can't remember, but it was a lot. A couple of dozen, was it? And in many respects, this feels like like sort of a slow moving version of that. Defying a national trend of campus closure. I like it a bit like it's like a trend, like it's a fashionable trend. It's like a trend. The people are defying the national trend of campus closures. President Jerry Falwell Jr. has invited students to return to residence halls and directed faculty members to continue to report to campus, even as most classes move online. I don't understand this. Falwell said somewhere between several hundred and more than 5,000 students are expected to live in campus dorms where they'll continue coursework online rather than classrooms. So I guess they'll just keep passing it around to each other. I think we have a responsibility to our students who paid to be here, who want to be here, to love it here, to give them the ability to be there with their friends. I don't know how many of those will die. There are definitely stories of young people getting ill as well. Liberty's dorms and academic buildings and library and fitness center remain open. Maybe these kids go home to visit their folks in a couple of months. Who knows? The university has taken some steps to help slow the virus spread, gathering in campus buildings, including a handful of classes, still holding in-person meetings, are capped at 10 people. Now, if it's the same 10 people that you can meet with, maybe you can get away with it. But if you switch up, they're just going to keep spreading it. It's just going to hop along. It'll be a fun thing to diagram. But that is what's happening on the right. They want to believe Donald Trump will take care of them, and that's going to be that. So we'll see. It was 900 and, well, around 10 died in Jonestown. Pretty ugly stuff. All right, let's go to the phones. I believe I am. Let's see what we got here. Okay, yeah, I'm on there. Let's go to calling from a 716 area code. Who's this? 716.
Hi, Sam. This is Jack calling from Buffalo.
Jack from Buffalo. What's on your mind, Jack?
Yep. Well, actually, I just moved back to the States from South Korea a little over a week ago.
Oh, boy.
And I wanted to kind of give a breakdown of the differences in the responses between the two countries.
Great. Let's hear it.
Well, I actually got tested for coronavirus in South Korea, and it was a very easy, simple process. But I guess the big thing is that in Korea, they actually signaled to the public that this is something to take serious right away, unlike our own government. And as such, measures were immediately put in place for temperature testing. For example, my fiance is a PhD
You keep cutting in and out. Are you moving around at all?
No, I'm just in the same place. Sorry.
Okay. Go ahead.
Right. And so, for example, when they shut down the universities and schools, even to enter the buildings, you needed to get your temperature taken when you entered each building, just as a way to prevent it from being spread any further.
You know what's amazing? Well, can I just say this for a second? Like, I have not heard of a single instance in the States where they're doing that. Maybe they are at certain places, but this is such an obvious thing to do. It's not a really accurate specific test, and it doesn't catch it if you're just a carrier and you're not symptomatic. But at the very least, you're weeding out at least some percentage of people, right?
Oh yeah, I mean it's absurd. I left for Saturday, March 14th at Incheon International Airport, and before you're even able to check in, you have to have your temperature taken once, and then before you enter security, you have to have your temperature taken another time. And when I got to JFK that same day, there was absolutely nothing. In fact, there was a girl in front of me that had arrived from Italy, and she was talking to Customs and Border Patrol, and they asked each other, "Are we supposed to do something about this?" And they looked at each other and said, "No, I think it's only Iran and China for now, but I don't know." And then she just continued on. I mean, not that she shouldn't be able to continue on. It was just a complete and utter lack of any understanding of what they're supposed to do. That just shows how bumbled it's really been.
Oh my God, it's crazy.
It's unbelievable. But the other thing is that there's a big reason why the South Korea model won't work in the United States. And that's because, again, the government took it seriously from the beginning. Trump likes to tout that he stopped flights from China right away, so that's prevented the spread. Well, that's not actually true because South Korea has yet to block flights from China, probably due to geopolitical reasons, deep economic ties. But what they were able to do is isolate where the community transmission took place because they were monitoring it so closely when it first began. And in Korea, there was obviously, I don't know if you were familiar with what happened. There was a religious
Yeah. Will you hold on for 1 second? Are you talking on the headphone or something like that?
No, just on my phone. I don't know. Sorry.
Right there is good. Right there is good. Just don't move around.
Okay.
Just keep the phone right there.
I'll stand statue-like still for you, Sam.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. You were just about to tell us that a huge cluster in South Korea came from basically a cult, young people.
Basically, it's basically a cult. Yeah, it's the Shincheonji Church there in Korea, and it's essentially a cult, very secretive, and it was spread there in the city of Daegu. Now, so what that allowed the government to do, because they had been vigorously tracking the cases. Case 13 was, a parent of Case 8 who had been in Wuhan the month before. They'd been tracking it very vigorously. So what they were able to do is kind of create a profile of who they needed to test right away, which included the people living in the city of Daegu, anybody affiliated with the Shincheonji cult/church, and anybody who had interacted with that certain group of people. So what they did was they started to set up these massive testing centers, the drive-through testing centers that you see. And because Korea has a rich biotechnology environment right now, especially in the universities, and the professors are able to create businesses using the laboratories at the universities, they developed the testing very quickly. And as such, they began testing rapidly the clusters where they knew they were. And that's what allowed for the response and the huge amount of testing and them to be able to track it and start to, flatten the curve, if you will. They're not fully out of the woods yet, obviously, but they've done a much better response. And the signaling from the government in the beginning is in part what led people to realize how serious it is. They haven't even done like a national quarantine or a stay at home. Things were somewhat functioning as normal when I was leaving.
Interesting.
And, this was at the time when Korea was the second most cases in the world by far. I mean, they had ballooned because they were aggressively testing though.
Well, I appreciate the call, and I appreciate your standing like a statue because the quality of your audio at that point was much better.
Anything I can do, Sam. Anything for you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for the call.
Left is best. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. Folks, I'm going to do the ads again. We did them up front, but because we weren't going live, going to do them now. And frankly, I'm glad you're getting an opportunity to hear them. Two products that you could use right now. One is, of course, for many of you, you have a stay-at-home order. For others, you're just trying to maintain your social distance. And so being at a place like the post office, not only would you not necessarily want to be congregating there, I don't even know that the postal workers right now would want you there either. In fact, we got to keep our distance. Good news is anything you can do at the post office, you can do online at stamps.com. With stamps.com, you save 5 cents off every first class stamp. You save up to 40% on shipping rates. The kind of savings that really adds up, especially for businesses. You personally print official U.S. postage 24/7 for any letter, any package, any class of mail going to anywhere. Once your mail is ready, you drop it in a mailbox. Boom. Stamps.com, you get discounted postage rates that you can't even get at the post office. It's a fraction of the cost of those expensive postage meters. There's no equipment to lease, no long-term commitments. It's no wonder over 700,000 small businesses already use Stamps.com. Right now, listeners can get a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and a digital scale without any long-term commitment. Just go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage, and type in, you ready for this? Majority Report. Can you remember that? That's stamps.com. Enter majority report after you've clicked on the microphone. Also, I mentioned this earlier. I left the testimonial from our official Third Love Majority Report bra tester. But I will tell you this, that Third Love bra styles are made to fit your life. Why? Because they are designed with measurements from millions of women. They have over 80 bra sizes, but they know that the only one that matters is yours. I can tell you that our official Majority Report bra tester reported back that not only does she find the bras that she got comfortable, not only does she find that they have subtle details that they like for an everyday bra, but on top of that, they fit, which apparently, I'm not a bra buyer, apparently is very, very difficult to find, particularly when you order online. But these are bras that are undoubtedly going to be the most comfortable you own. Straps that won't slip. They have tagless labels. They're lightweight, memory foam cups, and mold to your shape. Oh, and the other thing that she said was not only does she like the return policy, because you can hold on to them for 60 days, wash them, wear them. If you decide they're not for you, you send it back. What Third Love does is it will wash it and donate it to a woman in need. So with Third Love's perfect fit promise, every customer, like I say, has 60 days to wear it, wash it, and put it to the test. She doesn't like to waste stuff, our official Majority Report bra tester. Third Love knows there's a perfect bra for everyone. So right now, they're offering my listeners 15% off your first order. Go to town on these bras. Go to thirdlove.com/majority now to find your perfect fitting bra. Get 15% off your first purchase. That's thirdlove.com/majority for 15% off today. We mentioned earlier that Donald Trump was prepared to open up the floodgates, as it were, and send everybody back to work because he's got 6 hotels and properties that are losing money. Now, the way that the right is starting to frame this is that, and like we've said, 40% of the people who and wind up in the hospital are under the age of 50. So it definitely hits older people more, and the fatality rate is definitely higher for people over the age of 50, 60, 70, 80. It creeps up. So the idea is from the party that ran for 2 years on the notion that there were death panels in the Affordable Care Act, panels that would decide it's not worth at your advanced age to get this treatment. It's not worth doing. And incidentally, this was incorrect, but that was what they were framing it as. Are okay with the idea that we are going to, in fact, it's not even okay. They think it is an attribute to be willing to say to people over the age of 70, like, thanks for joining us. It's time for you to go. Here is Governor Dan Patrick on Tucker Carlson's program explaining that. I should say Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick of Texas. Here he is.
Living in fear of is what's happening. No one reached out to me and said, as a senior citizen, are you willing to take a chance on your survival in exchange for keeping the America that all America loves for your children and grandchildren? And if that's the exchange, I'm all in. And that doesn't make me noble or brave or anything like that. I just think there are lots of grandparents out there in this country, like me, I have 6 grandchildren, that what we all care about and what we, and I want to, live smart and see through this, but I don't want the whole country to be sacrificed. And that's what I see. I've talked to hundreds of people, Tucker, and just in the last week, and making calls all the time, and everyone says pretty much the same thing, that we can't lose our whole country. We're having an economic collapse. I'm also a small businessman. I understand it, and I talk with business people all the time, Tucker. And my heart is lifted tonight by what I heard the president say, because we can do more than, one thing at a time. We can do two things. So, my message is that let's get back to work. Let's get back to living. Let's be smart about it. And those of us who are 70 plus, we'll take care of ourselves, but don't sacrifice the country. Don't do that. Don't ruin this great American dream.
You're basically saying that this disease could take your life, but that's not the scariest thing to you. There's something that would be worse than dying.
Yeah. And look.
That's very noble. It's also really, really stupid. I mean, if we had the ability to say, you know what, we're going to kill all the people over the age of 70 so that the rest of the world can live, or the rest of the country can thrive. I think that would be a horror show, and I think that would be, I mean, it sounds dystopian, and it would be obscene. But if everybody decided that's what we're going to do, and we had sign off from all the older folks in the country, I suppose if everybody jumped into that boat together, I would just sit and be freaked out. But that's not the way it works. That's not, you're not just killing off the people over the age of 70. We can go about our businesses. You're going to destroy the capacity for hospitals to treat anyone. Unless you're basically saying, like, you show up at the hospital, if you've got it, just head to the waiting room. We have a wall of glass. You can say goodbye to your kids and your family, and that's it. Well, you just wait. I mean, this is absurd. This is absurd that their public policy strategy to deal with this is to start to massage people in such a way that, like, meh, it would be very helpful if maybe, over the age of 70, you guys basically just said, time for make some room. Now, I guess the big question is, like, is that what happens? I guess Pence becomes president. Matt, Brendan, are you guys there? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Well, so what happens at that point? If we get rid of all the 70-year-olds, does Trump start?
Does he start? Is he the first one to go?
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's a good idea.
I mean, that would be the most appropriate thing to me. It seems like he should step up and just be like, I'm willing to do it, so everybody else should follow me. If he does that, then I might contemplate signing up to think that's a good idea.
Like a Midsummer type of thing. Have you seen the movie Midsummer, Sam?
I have not.
Oh, you should check that out.
I'm familiar with Midsummer's Night's Dream, but
no,
is that a different thing?
It's a little bit different. There's some lessons in this regard here in that.
Did we already do okay. Here is Trump basically, and we should say that Trump's call to have to get back to work came amid public health experts saying you can't do this, it won't work. Well, Trump, he's a pretty smart guy. He has some different ideas. This is clip number 3.
Be very, very bad, and 2, that you want to get the country open back up as quickly as possible. So I guess my question is, if in a week Dr. Birx or Dr. Fauci are telling you we need to continue these measures for the health of the vulnerable populations of the country, are you going to say, I'm sorry, the economy is too important?
Well, you'll see what happens. I understand the question very well. It's a great question, but we can do two things at one time. I will say this, our country's learned a lot. We've learned about social distancing. We've learned about the hands. We've learned about staying away, at least during the time that this is even a little bit around. This disease or whatever you want to call it, many different names. You can call it many different names, but the virus while it's around. And we can start thinking about, as an example,
there you go. You won't commit to what the doctors say. And you can call it a bunch of different things. Did you know that? Did you know you could call it a bunch of different things? That's what he says when he doesn't know what to call it. He doesn't know what it is. It's not like he's been getting briefs on this, apparently. Apparently, he doesn't have access to literally the top epidemiologists in the world who could explain to him what it is. It still hasn't come through his head. This whole thing that he's worried about, the only thing he can think about is his hotels that are not making money right now. And
Sam,
so
I think you are discounting the fact that we did learn the thing about the hands, though.
we did learn, hands. He remembered that. He didn't say, hands or feet, whichever. It's both. It could be both. It could be both that are problematic, hands and feet. I wasn't paying too much attention, but you could call it a disease. Exactly what it is, because I haven't been listening for the past month when I've been having daily briefings with epidemiologists who could tell me what it is. He doesn't even know what it is. This is it's insane. It's insanity. This is insanity.
We have a little bit more of this too, if we want.
Is this which one is this? Is
it's
this
the same clip? We just have a little bit more.
As an example, parts of our country are very lightly affected, very small numbers. And, you look at a state, great governor, Pete Ricketts in Nebraska. You look at the kind of numbers they have out there. They have one of the great hospitals there, too, relative to what we're talking about. But you look at Nebraska, you look at Idaho, you look at Iowa, you look at I could name many countries that are handling it very, very well and that are not affected to the same extent.
Yeah. Incidentally, those are states. They're not countries. But aside from that, obviously, you misspoke. But what's the pattern? Did anybody pick up on a pattern like this? Like Iowa, Nebraska? What else did he say? Wyoming?
Idaho.
Those
are all, I think, Native American words.
They're all they're just not densely populated. It's fine there. All right. Well, let full on economic activity there. What are we going to do? We're going to move all our economic activity there. I mean, this is just absurd. This is lunacy. This is total lunacy. It's unbelievable. Here is Ed Henry on Fox News. Again, pushing this line of look, of course we want people to be safe, but we got to juggle a couple of different things. I mean, do we want people to be that safe? It's just a pandemic. Here is Ed Henry.
Dr. Birx yesterday at the same news conference, Dr. Hotez said that the best estimate right now of the mortality rate here in the United States is 0.7 or 0.8%, as in less than 1%. Now, every life matters, and you don't want to minimize any of them.
But one second. Do people not understand? Do these morons not understand that the reason why the mortality rates, when you have the opportunity to look back on a period of time in these countries where you start to get fatalities, is so high, is in part because the medical system is overwhelmed. Only so many ventilators, and there's only so many beds. And that at one point, as the number of fatalities begins and the illnesses, the severe illnesses increase, at one point, it's moving up the trajectory like this. And at one point, this line, this horizontal line, is the capacity for the hospitals. And when it goes past that line, the mortality rate starts to grow exponentially because you can't care for them. So the reason why it's at 0.7, it hasn't occurred to any of these people, why is our mortality rate at this point less than in other countries? Maybe there's something, maybe Americans are just they're so individualistic. They're so rugged that they can fight this disease in a way that other countries can't. Our per capita ICU beds is less than all these other countries. We have been caught flat-footed here in terms of protective gear. People don't understand. We're at the beginning of this. We're about to enter the phase. You want to get a notion of what's going to happen to other large centers. Start to look at what's happening right now in New York and over the next 7 days. You're going to see that mortality rate jump at one point because doctors are going to have to make the decision. Do I provide a respirator for this person as opposed to that person? Like they're all talking about this. Like theoretically, we could all just say like, we can let certain people die. Well, that's what's going to start happening at all of these hospitals. And then the mortality rate is going to go up. But here's Ed Henry. You understand that what he's doing here is the exact same thing as Donald Trump calling it a hoax 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago. He is creating the same misinformation. It's just a little bit more nuanced. Continue.
In less than 1%. Now, every life matters, and you don't want to minimize any of them, but when the mortality rate is that low, what is the balance? What would be your advice to the president if, say, he's trying to make this decision this coming weekend ahead of the expiration of the 15 days to slow the spread?
So what I would tell the president is that, Mr. President, the mortality rate, that may sound like a low rate. In fact, it's about 5 or 6 times higher than influenza. And what's more, it's not just older individuals. We're seeing about, according to the Centers for Disease Control, we're seeing about a third of the patients who are hospitalized under the age of 40 or 44. And even though they're not necessarily dying, their lives are being saved because they're in ICUs being taken care of. And the reason why Italy looks like Italy right now is you have so many patients in ICUs that they just can't take care of them all.
Yeah.
And you're starting to see high mortality. So I would say, look, let's get one public health victory under our belt here in terms of what's going on in New York. Maybe we're looking at another month and then reassess. And I agree, we can't stop our economy in perpetuity.
Sure.
or even for 2 years.
Doctor?
But I think if you do it now, while the numbers are still steeply climbing in New York, and remember, now we're seeing a new epidemic coming on in New Orleans. So we don't really fully understand how this epidemic is going to play out. It's a brand new virus pathogen. Give it another month and reassess.
I love how Ed Henry was like, doctor, we have limited time to hear from you. I just need the time to set the premise that maybe this isn't such a big deal. We're not going to let you ramble on about how I'm absolutely out of my mind and that the president to do this would basically be making the situation worse. We don't have too much time for that. The president could be watching. Let's just have my premise, and then you just have your degree and you be okay. You don't worry your little head about that. Calling from an 860 area code. Who's this? Jamie? Jamie seems to be talking to her cat.
Oh, hello. Hold on. I need to turn down the volume in the background.
Oh my
After
God.
hearing so many phone calls on this show over the past 2 years, Jamie, you don't realize when people listen to the show off their phone that it's not how it doesn't work well.
Oh my God. Well, I was trying to pay attention because I'm doing the notes. So I was listening off of my computer. But then,
fair enough.
I realized when I caught up. Yeah, sorry about that.
This is like a libertarian call.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Wow, this is a great start to this call, huh? Hi guys.
Jamie,
you miss me?
yes. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I've actually been very busy this past week or so, cranking out content with the Antifada, trying to help people understand this crisis and what's going on, as well as helping ourselves understand it, because we are all muddling through together. I also have been on a lot of calls with DSA about the various legislative demands we need to be making, how we can put pressure on Cuomo specifically, and also planning out networks of mutual aid. I went on my first grocery run the other night. I'm not one of the main organizers. I just put my name on the spreadsheet. Someone texted me. I went to get some groceries for some folks who couldn't get them for themselves, and I reimbursed myself out of the fund. That was
Nice.
pretty cool.
And so when you do this run, are you going, I mean, what was the grocery store like? Did you go in, are you wearing gloves? You're wearing masks? You're just making sure you keep distance from people? You washing your hands?
Yeah, unfortunately, I have not been able to track down a mask yet, but I was able to get some gloves, and we're following best practices to the degree that we're able to, double bagging stuff when we get there. We leave the groceries outside the door. We
Now, what
keep
is the
our
double
distance
bagging
at all
thing?
times.
Explain the double bagging thing.
Oh, so I guess there's a higher chance that the outside bag is contaminated. So I'm not really sure how this works. I'm not an epidemiologist, but people are saying, like, if you order stuff from the outside world, you should take it out of the bag immediately, throw the bag away, wash your hands, disinfect the outsides of the things, the packaging to the degree that you can, and then you will be safer than if you hadn't done that.
Yeah, I mean, this is along the lines of, like, if you get a package, the best thing to do is to leave it outside your door if you can. I mean, if you're obviously in an apartment building and you trust everybody, or if you are at a house and you can leave it outside for 24 hours, much better to do that than anything else. But if you do need to open it up, whatever you're going to open it up with, you can wash your hands, but you get, like, what I do, I'm opening them up and I'm dropping the thing on the ground and then washing my hands and then picking it up.
I hope it's not breakable.
I lost a couple of plates that way, but no.
Yeah, so that's been really inspiring to see everybody coming together and helping each other out. And that is actually the topic of my most recent episode of the Intifada. We had on the politics editor from Teen Vogue, Lucy Diavolo, or, as I like to call it, Guillotine Vogue. And she talks about some of the mutual aid networks that have been forming and some of the history of mutual aid and community defense as, not just a way to survive in the present moment, but a way to really build class power and solidarity on the radical left. The Black Panthers are one of the examples that come to mind.
Beautiful. All right. Well, we'll put a link. Will you put a link in the blogs to DSA in was it in North Brooklyn? That is it or wherever it was?
It's the whole city.
All right. Well, so
yeah, I will.
Okay, great. And so when is that Antifada coming out?
Oh, we released 2 episodes last week, so that's already out now. Along with Sean did a 2-parter of his series Line Goes Down, which is about Marxist political economy with a particular eye to crisis. So as you can imagine, that's pretty relevant right now as well. I learned a lot. I always learn a lot from listening to it. I also want to recommend a piece in a journal called Shuang. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Shuang?
It's a communist journal out of China. It's spelled Chuang. It's called Social Contagion, and it kind of traces the various ways that capitalist development has, in a large part, created these kinds of modern plagues, as well as exacerbating the consequences for them. It also talks about how the Chinese government's response has in some ways mirrored counterinsurgency tactics used by a powerful state against its populace, and poses it as kind of a dry run for how a powerful state might respond to an actual insurrection, and shows kind of some of the cracks that are starting to show in the facade of state power, even in a place as shall we say, state powerful as China.
There you go. All right. Well, Jamie, stay safe. And hopefully, if we are successful, we had a little hiccup today, obviously, with our bandwidth. But hopefully, we'll be able to get you on the line for the whole show tomorrow or in the coming days.
Hell yeah, it happens to the best of us. I also just want to say one more thing. These videos you've been playing are making me so mad. But also, when I say over and over again that the capitalist mode of production is maybe not the best way to organize society and provide for human needs, everyone looks at me like, oh, Jamie, you're so crazy. But it took 6 days for these schools to start trying to make blood sacrifices so an imaginary line would go back up. An imaginary line the human invented and now controls all of our lives. So all I'm saying, maybe it's time to rethink this system.
And I would also add that the reason why apparently the president has not used the powers of the Defense Production Act is because basically the Chamber of Commerce has said don't do it. But there's a tremendous amount of mayhem amongst these manufacturers. They don't know, like, are we making too much? Are we making too little? What should we be making for whom? We have a lot of different contracts that are coming in. Why shouldn't we take the biggest one? Why, I mean, it is stunning. There's a clearly a failure. I hope you appreciated the nationalizing the airlines yesterday.
Oh, certainly.
I don't know that we can crowdsource those.
That we can crowdsource what?
Well, I mean, it's going to be hard to do airlines without a state, don't you think?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would think so. Also, negative shout outs to Cuomo for trying to cut Medicaid. Still, during a global pandemic, everyone is like crapping their pants over him because they just don't know all the bad shit that he's done, or I don't know, the media manufactures consent. But he's saying similar things to what Trump is saying. He's saying that we need to get back to work. He's not acknowledged, at least the Republicans are acknowledging that people will die as a result. Like, he's too smart to say that, but he's trying to make people go back to work or think about going back to work. And he's making cuts to Medicaid. He brought in a group of consultants to try to apply just-in-time production. We talked about this with Amazon, right? He's trying to apply that to public hospitals in New York City. So if hospitals have any empty beds at any given time, which is what you need to have in order to be ready for contingencies like this, that's considered waste in this corporate mindset. So he's been doing this all along. He knew exactly what he was doing. Oh, and if there are people waiting, if there's like a bottleneck of people waiting, that's good because it means they're operating at maximum efficiency. It's disgusting.
Jamie, thanks. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye.
Later.
Gonna do. We'll talk a little bit more about Andrew Cuomo as we go forward. But this is also what we were talking about the other day in terms of, when you have this type of profit motive with hospitals, they are not going to have. It's like the airlines. They're not going to sit around and carry a couple of empty beds just because maybe there might be a time where we need one, like for a pandemic. This is too costly. They have to squeeze every single dollar of profit out of their enterprise. Why? Because that's what makes their shares go up. Why is that important? Because that's how a lot of these CEOs and board of directors, all of them, get paid. They're running a cottage industry. I don't know. Who is the cow guy? Who is this guy? The cow guy. He is, I guess it's a business, right? The cow guy.
Scott Shalady, I believe he owns an investment firm.
Well, how did he get the nickname the cow guy?
This morning is the
Have
first
you
time I've
never
heard
seen
of the cow guy.
All right, so I guess my past experience of having to watch this crap for work for 12 hours a day gave me sort of contact exposure to this guy at some point. But yeah, this is I'll pull him up.
Here's the cow guy, and he's on with Stuart Varney, and this there you go. That's why he's the cow guy. This is like what like certain investors do. Like they brand themselves. I mean, to be honest, like that is why when I started Air America, I wore a bow tie because I wanted to confuse people so that they would think I was Tucker Carlson. And I wanted people to go like, "Hey, what's that dude? Why is that guy with the bow tie? He's like, he's like completely changed his ideology." And I don't know if it worked or not, but now I got all those dumb pictures of me with a bow tie out there looking really serious online. But here is the cow guy, and he is speculating that this could be the day that Donald Trump becomes president. Let's try it.
Too painful, so open it up fast.
Well, he calls himself a wartime president, right? Fighting this virus. Well, our wartime president has to start making some very uncomfortable wartime decisions. He needs a Churchillian moment here, Stuart, because he's got two things to choose from. He either can open up the economy again or solve for the virus. And I don't think he can
open it up fast.
He either can open up the economy again or solve for the virus. And I don't think he can solve for the virus right now. So it's the pendulum is swinging towards opening up the economy again, or at least some sort of, and that's why the market loves this. But you know what I'd like us all to do is we need to have a little perspective.
Pause it. I just want to make it clear what he's saying at this point. He's saying like, we missed the boat on stopping the virus from killing a lot of people. So let's stop any efforts to mitigate the death and misery that's going to come from the virus. And let's focus on getting the stock market back up. Let's keep our priorities, folks. I mean, basically what they're saying is like, look, we know that wealthy people have had enough time to figure out how they're going to weather this storm. If they haven't, if they, they may have already got it. And if they did, well, then they already got it. But the rest of the wealthy people have figured out how they're going to weather this storm. So let's let the storm rage. And because I don't know anything about pandemics, I can say that it's just going to peter out on its own. Remember when Donald Trump said that? Like, it's like magic. Summer comes and it goes away. And he's saying, let's just get the stock market up. But here.
Because the pendulum is swinging towards opening up the economy again, or at least some sort of, and that's why the market loves this. But you know what I'd like us all to do is we need to have a little perspective, and we need to see other numbers of other deaths of other diseases on a daily basis, so we don't just have these numbers in thin air. This is ridiculous just reporting one number because nobody knows if that's good, is that bad, and I think that would help with the psyche of the country. And just as lawyers look at how things have been handled in the past, right? Why don't we look at how other viruses have been handled in the past? How did we handle H1N1? Give us some idea about how those things were done so we can see how this is being done. Because I'm telling you, I'm talking to the average everyday man, and they're absolutely flummoxed on how we can do this to all.
Pause it for 1 second. You know, when he approaches the everyday man may be flummoxed because he's talking to a guy wearing a cow sport jacket and a cow vest. And he may just be looking at this guy going like, what? That could be part of the flummoxing. When I talk to the everyday man, they don't seem to have a full appreciation for what a pandemic entails. And that means we should completely ignore the science. Continue.
Man. And they're absolutely flummoxed on how we can do this to all these people. 150 million people don't have a voice. They've worked 35 years only to lose a third of their 401k right before they retire. And they didn't get a say in any of it. And it wasn't their fault. How do you prepare early, how to amend those losses? There will be death and destruction on that side of the coin that nobody's talking about. So yes, the market loves the idea of opening back up again. again, because that's the problem. And here we are, sitting here, taking advice on how to stay safe from our local government and our federal government, and they can't even come to an agreement on helping out the guy that lost his job yesterday. That's a joke. So we're taking advice from people that can't come together on some pretty basic things, and look what's happening on a day-to-day basis. We can't let this go on anymore.
What does that mean? How do we can't listen. Someone has to go up and tell the pandemic enough is enough. We're tired of this. You need to stop it.
Hidden line buster. Yeah.
You need to stop it, young virus. You virus, you haven't been around for more than 3 or 4 months, and you walk around here like you own the entire place. You're in trouble, Mr. or Mrs. We need to do more studies. This is just insanity. We could go back and look at how we handled the Spanish flu. What was it, like 700,000 people died in the States? We could look at that.
We also have different options available for securing people's retirements than forcing the markets open during a pandemic.
Well, I mean, it's not these. It's not the pandemic that's doing this. It's the freaking. It's the people who are selling off on Wall Street. All right, hold on for 1 second. Let's see if I can get Saul up here. See if I can get my son up here to see if he'll do the. He may not do it. I know Ronald Reagan's up there now chomping at the bit, but I think my son basically just said, forget it. I'm not going to deal with this guy anymore. Calling from a 404 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 404.
Hey, Sam. This is Mike. This is Michael calling from California.
Michael from California. What's on your mind?
I just wanted to give you a couple of updates. I'm in Riverside County, which is the Coachella Valley where Palm Springs is. There's not a lot of testing going on, but we have had 48 cases identified and already 6 deaths out of that 48, which is 12%. We also have a local company that's a division of Vyaire Medical that actually manufactures ventilators here in the valley. And the case against capitalism, as it relates to Vyaire, it's very clear because basically they are trying to hire people as we speak to ramp up their production. And they're doing a great job as best they can, but in light of the fact that they are on that that same short planning sphere and that same regular capitalism where we don't produce anything until we need it, they've been caught flat-footed. So hopefully this will be another shot into capitalism when we see how these companies are just unable to respond agilely to crises like these.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that in a non-capitalist world that you could predict that, well, we should have, that many more ventilators around. Right? Like, I just don't know if that is the problem there. I mean, conceivably, you would have some extra, you would have some stores, but really what we need is, to be able to say, okay, that company's going to hire some people, but they're in a location where there maybe isn't a lot of people, but we need, and I know that I think it is GM now is dedicating some of their plants, but we need the federal government to be directing GE to produce X number of ventilators so that we know that we can count on them to get X number of ventilators. And frankly, GM, they want the federal government to say, like, what's the number we need to hit? Tell us what number we need to hit. We can't produce, unknown quantity of ventilators. We need to be able to plan. So we don't have the metrics. We don't know what the demand is out there. We're in the car business. We can retool our machinery. We can change the inputs and the outputs, but we don't know how many ventilators we need to make? You need to tell us. The federal government needs to be in a position. I mean, they're the ones who are theoretically have the means in which to coordinate this stuff. And the federal government is refusing to do it. I don't know under a different system whether we would have stockpiles of ventilators. I don't know that you would, or how long you would want to even keep stockpiles of ventilators. Maybe the technology is not, changing so much, but um, maybe we would, or
Well, and I think it calls, though, for, like you were talking about earlier with hospital beds. If we have excess capacity for some of these types of equipment that could at any given time be required for a national emergency, obviously it's different from non-essential items.
But that's my point, is that we do have that. We do have that. It's just that it is in the hands of private companies right now, and the president is refusing to use the authority that he has to make them turn their machines into making what we need right now. So that extra capacity exists because we don't need a ton of cars right now. We're okay for cars. We're gonna have to ramp back up, and eventually we're gonna be buying new cars. But right now, we need ventilators. We don't necessarily need a whole new vacuums. I mean, that's why you see this sporadically. A distillery is making more rubbing alcohol. Good. That's good. But we need to do this in a coordinated fashion. Having like this is like, like a scavenger hunt is ridiculous. There needs to be some coordination. Appreciate the phone call.
Sure thing. Big fan.
Thank you. I'm a fan of yours. I enjoyed that call. James, this.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, is this me?
Yeah, who's this?
Hi, this is James from New York.
James from New York. What's on your mind?
Hi, I just wanted to talk about the situation going on in Israel right now with the coronavirus.
Okay.
All right, so not sure if people have been keeping up with Israel. So they've been kind of at an impasse with their elections. Netanyahu does not have any kind of governing majority, and they've gone through basically 3 different elections to try to figure out who's going to be leading the country. And all of them have just been ending in stalemates with Benny Gantz. And in the most recent election, the Israeli president selected Gantz to try to form a new governing coalition as opposed to Netanyahu. But this also happened around the time the coronavirus situation started escalating about three weeks ago. So Netanyahu took this opportunity to try to seize power. So he closed closed a lot of the judiciary, pushed back a lot of court cases, including his own indictment case.
Yep.
What?
Yep, I know. Go ahead.
Yeah, and he's also been getting more autocratic when it comes to surveillance power. He's trying to monitor coronavirus patients using GPS on their phone. And he's also been trying to suspend the Knesset, their Israeli parliament, from meetings so that the new government can take their powers. The courts recently ruled that he had to allow the new parliament to convene, so he couldn't seize power that way. But he definitely is trying to use all of the powers at his disposal to try to stay in power, try to stay out of prison, and stop the opposition from gaining any ground. And even though the opposition ideologically probably honestly isn't that different, there isn't a large difference between like Gantz and Netanyahu. He doesn't want to give up that power, and if he does, he'd likely be going to prison.
Yeah, indeed. Reminiscent, I think, or I should say, a foreshadowing of what we may see here. There's been a lot of that, and I appreciate the call. Thank you for the call. There's been a lot of that. A lot of the politics that we've seen in Israel have been sort of transmogrified and transported over here, and I suspect we're going to see something similar come November from our president. So the next phase, I mean, there's two phases going on at Fox News right now. There is the, well, old people have lived a long life. Maybe we should just go back to pretending like this pandemic's not happening. And if we lose some, we lose some. The other phase of this is we found the miracle cure. Here's Laura Ingraham. She is interviewing a patient who took hydroxychloroquine and he recovered. And apparently, according to Laura Ingraham, this guy Rio Gianardi is a proactive patient. This is a heartwarming story of a guy who basically heard the president say, this may or may not work. And here it is.
I didn't see any other options. For me, it was a risk it was worth taking for me. So he heard my story out, authorized it, and 30 minutes later, the nurse came in and gave me the first dosage.
Wow! Oh my! I mean, so a prayer line was involved. I want to highlight that. So it was a prayer line, a friend, correct, a communication. And you, Rio, were a proactive patient. You were your own patient advocate. And, you know, it's a drug that's been around for almost 70 years. And, I mean, look, none of us are doctors, but I am so happy that you seem to be doing so much better. And I assume are you still on the hydroxy? On the hydroxy?
My last dose about an hour ago.
And how are you feeling right now?
I feel fantastic, and I have since I woke up on Saturday morning. I know it sounds unbelievable. People are questioning me about it, but I know what I feel. I woke up at 4:45 in the morning, and it felt like I had nothing. And I had to catch myself for a second and say, wait a minute, I'm breathing. This is not normal. And I realized I didn't have my fever anymore. So I hit the nurse call button at 4:45 and said, I'm fine. Can you send a nurse in? I feel a little hungry. The nurse came in, took my vitals, and sure enough, my fever was gone. That was not able to be broken for 9 days. And then it was gone at 4:45 in the morning. My only thing I had was I had a headache, and you know, that lasted a couple days, but all of their symptoms were completely gone. My vitals were where they should be. Yes, ma'am.
That's amazing. Rio, first of all, you need to keep in touch with us. I want to track how you're feeling every day, and I also want to track when you're released from the hospital. And could you keep in touch with us over the next few days?
No, definitely. I'm expecting to be released tomorrow.
So there you have this guy took hydroxychloroquine, and it apparently made him healthy, according to him, who is not a doctor, and to Laura Ingraham, who is also herself not a doctor. What is definitely the case is that there has been a run on this drug because President Trump said that could help. And the 1.5 million Americans who suffer from lupus and need that drug to prevent the symptoms associated with lupus apparently can't get it now because there's been a run on it. And because, of course, there's this whole ethos that is being presented of like, you got to be proactive, man. You got to take it where, you know, you got to take it where you find it. An Arizona man died after ingesting chloroquine phosphate, thinking that it would protect him from becoming infected with the virus. His wife also ingested the substance, is under critical care. What they consumed was not the medication form of chloroquine, which is used to treat malaria in humans. It was an ingredient listed on a parasite treatment for fish. The man's wife told NBC News she'd watched televised briefings during the President Trump talked about the potential benefits of chloroquine. Even though no drugs are approved to prevent or treat COVID-19, the disease caused by the coronavirus, some early research suggests it may be useful as a therapy. The name chloroquine resonated with the man's wife, who asked that her name not be used to protect the family's privacy in the course of this. She used it previously to treat her koi fish. She had a koi pond. So the couple, both in their 60s, decided to mix a small amount of the substance with a liquid and drink it as a way to prevent the coronavirus. We were afraid of getting sick. Within 20 minutes, both became extremely ill, dizzy and hot. And the guy died. I mean, but, you know, if we were to accept the Republican construct on this, it's one life. It's good to know that that doesn't work. It was probably worth it, right? Right? At least we know, don't drink the stuff that is supposed to get rid of the parasites in your koi fish just because the president mentioned something that sounds like that. Don't drink that stuff. I mean, it could have been worth it. Well, here's Sean Hannity on television reading a regiment from just a doctor. I mean, who knows if this is something that like an actual doctor is doing, or it's just like some dude who sent Sean Hannity an email. And apparently this guy's, he's telling it to the president, the vice president. I mean, I don't know what the hell is going on here. This is just bizarre. Here's Sean Hannity telling Mike Pence that, hey, some doctor out here has a regimen that is apparently like a wonder cure.
Mr. Vice President, I'm holding up a letter, and I'm going to read from it in a second, from a doctor in the New York area. And if I may read from it, he has now worked with his associates, and he has a regimen, hydroxychloroquine, 200 milligrams twice a day, 5 days. Azithromycin, 500 milligrams once a day, 5 days. Zinc sulfate, 220 milligrams once a day for 5 days. This is what he has seen. Him and his team have now treated approximately 350 patients in Kairos Joel, is an area of New York that was hit particularly hard, and another 150 patients in other New York areas. His results: we have had 0 deaths, 0 hospitalizations, 0 intubations. Mr. Vice President, I'm holding a
So there it is. I mean, like, I don't know what's supposed to be happening there. It's not like it's not like Sean Hannity doesn't have a direct line to the president. And it's also not like the president has bothered to use the authority granted to him to go out and to tell people, like, all right, let's make an extra emergency dosage of this. Let's do a quick clinical test. They're not doing anything. The market will figure it out. That's the amazing thing about it. On one hand, they're so desperate to get the stock market back up and to get people back to work, which I understand, obviously. People need to get jobs. Hopefully, I don't know if we know yet if they've passed that stimulus bill. Hopefully they can buy us a couple of weeks. Hopefully. But they're so desperate on one hand to get the economy going again. On the other hand, they're so desperate not to set the precedent that in any way we can gain efficiency from having some of these facilities nationalized, essentially. It's not fully nationalized. It's basically just like saying, like, we're your number one customer. If we come and ask you to make something, you make it, and we get it first. And we'll give you all sorts of information about the coordination and how much we want and this and that. But they're so desperately afraid of what precedent that might set, or some ideas that people might get, or how it may cut into some people's profits. Like, I can tell you this, there's no one on the board of these places that are saying, hey, this is going to cost us millions upon millions of dollars, so let's do it anyways. The calculation a place like GM is probably making at this point is something to the effect of, like, we're not selling any cars. We've got factories full of cars. We've got lots full of cars. We got so much inventory right now. We're not going to move this for months. But we have that machinery there. We can get people to come in and work the machinery. Let's pump out some product that we can charge people for. That's what's happening. This is not, these companies are not stepping up. They're not stepping up. There's no sacrifice going on here. They're mitigating their losses because there's no ability for people to buy their product. That's what's going on here. Don't make any mistakes about this. I mean, there may be some distilleries that are like, we have the ability to create rubbing alcohol, small, we're an artisanal distillery in Brooklyn and we can make rubbing alcohol. We'll do that. We're an artisanal distillery in Minneapolis. We have the ability to do it. They'll do it. But broadly speaking, this is about these entities mitigating their losses and realizing they're not going to sell their normal product, and we can just turn around and retrofit a couple of things and we can go out and sell stuff that people want right now. That's what's going on here. Waiting for do we know what the status is of that bill? In the Senate? I don't think we do. All right, let's take a couple more calls and then we're out of here. 740, where are you calling from? Who's this?
Oh, hi, Sam. This is Colin. I'm calling in from Georgia.
Calling in.
Calling in. That's right. Yep. So I just, I was watching the presidential address the other day, and I just thought it was really weird how Donald Trump could not, for some reason, say walk and chew gum at the same time, which is something Andrew Cuomo used quite a few times in his address earlier that day. So, I mean, I'm just not sure why he can't put those two simple things together. It's like he wants to use what Andrew Cuomo was saying, but he doesn't want to say it exactly. It's just kind of weird.
In other words, he can't walk and chew gum at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little out of his depth, I think. But also something just, I think with Bernie Sanders, totally off topic, but I feel like he should probably go down the same path as Donald Trump, using nicknames. And I think Draft Dodger Donnie would be a really good one.
That's
especially in this wartime that he's trying to say that we're in.
Very possibly. I appreciate the call. Interesting idea. I don't know how that's going to play in this environment. Calling from a 551 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Sam. It's A Square.
A Square. How are you?
How are you, Sam?
I'm hanging in there.
We are all hanging in there. I just a quick call to say how much we appreciate what you're doing, and the show has a feel of like it feels like those old movies, and everybody's in a bunker but staying connected. The shout outs at the beginning of the show, the notices, it's just a feeling of community. We can't thank you enough.
Oh, well, thank you, A Square. That's really nice. And obviously everybody's pitching in. Matt is there working overtime. Brendan's working overtime there, dealing with all sorts of technical problems. And Jamie's writing down. Yes.
We loved it. Right. This is late stage capitalism.
I'm hoping we'll hear from Michael tomorrow.
Horrendous.
Yeah. Look, there is no situation where we wouldn't be this wouldn't be a problem. I don't think there's no system of government that is going to eliminate a pandemic, but we clearly exactly we are completely incapable of responding to this. And and so much of this reminds me of Katrina, because when the more you privatize these things and the more you outsource these things, and that's the flip side of the less you take advantage of what we have in terms of laws in basically taking over these industries. I think we made a very good case. I think Alex Salmon made a very good case for nationalizing the airlines industry regardless of the situation. But the the more you introduce profit as a motivation in these areas, the less responsive it can be to these things, because the responding in the way that needs be involves risk, right? And here's the perfect example, and everybody out there has experienced this. 2 weeks ago, I could have said to everybody on the show, you know what? I'm looking down the road and this thing looks a little bit dicey. And so we're all going home. We'll figure out how to do this from home. Everybody will go. And it would have been the safest thing to do. It would have been the safest thing to do 2 weeks ago for all of us to socially isolate. But it's a risk. We're going to run into headaches. What if this doesn't turn out to be a real problem? And instead, we ended up doing it on Monday. At one point, I thought we were going to be doing the show until last Friday in the studio. And things became more obviously problematic. The risk there is to 3 or 4 different people, right? And we still, I'm glad that we pulled the trigger when we did. In retrospect, I probably would have done it a day or 2 earlier. But I'm glad we did it when it did, but the risk was minimal. In this instance, when you're talking about like, I don't want to shut down the cruise liners, the cruise ships, or I don't want to raise alarms that will hurt the stock market. Like it creates such a risk aversion that instead of erring on the side of we're going to mitigate a real disaster, it's like, well, hopefully we get away with this one. And 8 times out of 10, maybe you do. 9 times out of 10, maybe you do. But that 10th one,
Sam, these people are nuts. They are just nuts. If you can play maybe tomorrow the governor of Florida telling people how it's not a risk over there. I mean, you're listening to these people and it's hard not to cry, because the level of death and misery that these people are going to bring about is just horrendous. Listen, I'm going to stay in touch, of course, and to the entire MR crew, thank you again so much. Mike is also doing some great shows. If anybody can listen to the bonus stream of Sreko Horvat, Matt, that was great. We really appreciate all that you're doing. Stay safe, okay, guys?
Thanks, Dan Squared. Appreciate the call.
Bye.
All right, let's take one more call and then we'll out of here. What does on the verge mean, Matt? Oh, I see. Okay. On the verge of signing that bill. Okay. All right. And we don't know what's in the bill yet. I'll be honest with you. We don't know what's in the bill. I mean, I've seen the Democratic version that was there in the House, and we have vague notions. $2 trillion sounds to me like there's a big trade-off between, like, yes, you can give the slush funds to some of these people, but we need more food stamps and this and that. We'll see. This is one of those cases of we'll know what's in the bill once we pass it type of situations. All right, final call of the day, calling from a 308 area code. Is this Kowalski? It sounds like he's on his tractor. Kowalski. It is him. Kowalski in Nebraska. Kowalski, turn your tractor off.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Where are you? Are you in the fields right now?
No, I'm running a chainsaw.
Oh, that didn't sound like a chainsaw.
Definitely a chainsaw.
What kind of chainsaw you running there?
It is a Steel M5311.
Still using gas, I see.
Yeah.
All right.
So I wanted to call in and give you a little update from a relative of mine that works in the health industry here.
Okay.
We have a community, a county that has about 62,000. And within that county, we have approximately 4 dozen ventilators.
Okay.
So, yeah, if it gets bad, hard decisions will have to be made. So keep that in mind, everyone.
Well, that's the point. That's what people don't seem to understand about what adds to the death rate here. The mortality rate in and of itself is probably 4 or 5 times more fatal than the flu. But when you start adding in that we don't have the capacity to treat people, it's going to jump right up.
Exactly.
All right.
So,
Well,
yeah. Be like me, social distance. Go to your pastures and cut cedar trees down.
there you go. What do you get? You get cedar
These
rust?
aren't your trees, by the way, are they?
No, they're not. Spelled differently. What are you cutting down those cedar trees
Pretty
for?
good. I thought this was part of the big Jewish conspiracy.
No, are you using them for? Are you using them for fencing? No, he doesn't know. He doesn't care. All right, there's Kowalski.
What was that?
Forget it. Go back to cutting.
All right, I will do.
All right.
Stay in your bunkers, people. Bye.
There you go. Kowalski from Nebraska. We got a good mix of callers. All right, hold on 1 second. Let's just take this guy because I have a feeling I know who this is. 509. 509. Who's this?
Sam.
Yeah. Okay. Ronald Reagan.
Ronald
I'm only
Reagan.
taking your call. This is an extra call I'm taking. Look, apparently my son has basically said he's not going to play games with you. He doesn't. You have one chance with him. You don't come back for round 2. He said, forget it. I'm not wasting my time with him. Yeah.
Well, I just want to say, A Squared had some beautiful words, and rest assured they're not shared by your whole audience. You know, she might feel differently if she's been called a coward and a liar over the last few days of the show.
I told you not to pick up this call, Sam.
I know.
No real solidarity amongst the crowd. But look, here's the deal. First of all, I'm not a liar or a coward, and I'll fight your son wherever, whenever.
Hold on. I can't hear you.
Reagan, he can't hear you right now.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Reagan. I had lost my headphone. In fact, I did it purposely. But go ahead.
Oh, yeah. There just seems to be like a real convenient cavalcade of technical difficulties over the last few days when I've been trying to call in and debate your son. I just want to. There's a real libertarian quality to what's going on your end, I should say.
Well, look, he showed up the first
This is
day.
what I wanted to tell Saul, and you can just clip this and you can play it. This is like a wrestling promo.
Okay.
You can play it for him later. Now, Saul, I understand you like Jim Carrey, and as your dad has probably told you, there's a phenomenon with movies, which is sometimes the funniest movies are the least successful. I'm sure your dad has told you that.
Of course.
And Jim Carrey did a little movie called The Cable Guy.
Yes.
Which was unsuccessful. But
Ben Stiller
you should definitely
directed.
watch it with your dad.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to here's the thing about The Cable Guy is it's not going to be funny the first 10 or 12 times you watch it. So make sure your dad watches it with you at least 15 times, and then you'll really start to, the movie will sort of round into shape and you'll start to get it. But it's by far Jim Carrey's funniest movie. And you can trust me on this.
All right. Well, I will. I will tell Saul that. Last night we had a special movie. We watched The Last Tango in Paris. He really liked that.
Oh, good. Well, have you seen The Cable Guy, Sam?
Of course, I've seen The Cable Guy. Dude, the Ben Stiller.
Hey, Stevie,
Ben Stiller.
time to leavey. I heard that a lot in high school.
Oh well, I didn't watch it as I didn't see it as a high school student. So for me, I didn't find catchphrases in it.
Okay, well, just make sure he watches Cable Guy.
No, of course. I can't believe I made I appreciate the call. I tried to call him on the walkie-talkie, and Saul doesn't seem to be around.
Weird.
All right. It's Ronald Reagan, ladies and gentlemen. I made the that's all the time we have for calls today. Maybe on Thursday we'll just do an all-call, show. I'm not sure. We'll figure it out. But we're off the phone there. I can't believe I just made a Last Tango in Paris joke. You didn't even get it. The movie's too old. Does anybody else know?
You can't believe it?
I can't believe it. Have you guys? I guess that was a Dennis Miller joke.
Yeah.
Oh shoot, we're moving into the Dennis Miller phase of the quarantine already. I had scheduled that for like a month.
Right. Well, I
Oh,
mean,
boy.
he's been in quarantine himself, self-imposed. It seems like for a long time. He was so depressed. But folks,
Let's send
that's our
let's send him a Zoom link. Let's get him on.
let's do that. Oh, Jesus. All right, folks. That's all the show for today. We will see you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got